The scent of burnt sugar clung to the air, a ghost of happier times. My mother's wedding ring glinted on the windowsill, abandoned. I knew then that everything had shattered. The silence in the house was a heavy blanket, suffocating. My father's favorite armchair sat empty. Its worn leather seemed to sag with his absence. We were adrift, a ship without a captain. My younger sister, Lily, traced patterns on the dusty glass. Her eyes held a sadness too old for her 10 years. She whispered my name like a prayer. I pulled her close, her small body trembling. This was not the life we had known. This was a landscape of broken promises. The chipped teacups on the counter mocked us. They held the echoes of laughter. Now, only the drip of a leaky faucet punctuated the quiet. I looked at Lily's face. Her innocence was a fragile thing. I had to protect it from the storm. Dad had always been our anchor. He was laughter and strength. He was bedtime stories and scraped knees. Now, he was a void, a gaping hole in our world. The police had been here. Their questions were clinical. Their pronouncements were final. He was gone. No explanations, no goodbyes. Just the stark reality of his absence. Mom retreated into herself. Her grief was a silent scream. She moved through the house like a phantom. Her eyes were hollow. Her hands shook. She barely ate. She barely slept. Her world had imploded too. I felt this immense pressure. I was the elder sibling. I had to be strong. I had to hold us together, but I was barely holding myself together. The weight of it all was crushing. I remembered the day he left. It was a Tuesday. The sun was shining. Lily was learning to ride her bike. He had kissed us goodbye. He said he was going to the store. He never came back. The police said it was an accident, a tragic, terrible accident. But something felt wrong. A cold knot of unease twisted in my gut. His car was found near the old quarry. It was mangled, a twisted wreck. They said he must have lost control. The road was treacherous, but Dad was a careful driver. He knew those roads like the back of his hand. He had driven them for 20 years. He never took risks. He always put us first. This accident theory felt like a story, a convenient explanation, but it didn't fit the man I knew. I started noticing things, small inconsistencies, things that didn't add up. Mom's hushed phone calls, her sudden silences, the way she avoided my gaze. She was hiding something. I could feel it, a secret festering beneath the surface. Lily sensed it too. She would ask me questions. Where did Daddy go? When will he come home? I had no answers for her, only a growing dread. The house was filled with ghosts. His scent lingered in his closet. His books still lined the shelves. Each object was a painful reminder, a tangible piece of him lost. I tried to keep Lily occupied. We played cards. We read stories. But her eyes always drifted to the window. She was waiting, just like me, waiting for a miracle or a truth. The town whispered. Gossip spread like wildfire. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone offered their condolences. But no one truly understood the depth of our loss, the gaping chasm in our lives. I started to investigate, quietly at first, searching for answers, looking for clues. I went through his desk, his papers, his old journals. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, just the mundane details of a life that had been abruptly ended. But the unease persisted. It gnawed at me. It kept me awake at night. I replayed the last few days, his behavior, his mood. He had seemed distracted, preoccupied. Was he worried about something? Was someone threatening him? The possibilities were terrifying. I confided in my best friend Sarah. She listened patiently. She offered comfort, but she couldn't understand the intensity of my suspicions. She thought I was grieving too hard, letting my imagination run wild. But I knew what I felt. This wasn't just grief. This was a premonition, a deep-seated certainty that something was terribly wrong. The local police had closed the case. They considered it a done deal, an unfortunate accident. No further investigation was needed. Their dismissiveness only fueled my resolve. I wouldn't let them sweep this under the rug. I owed my father more than that. I owed him the truth. I started visiting the quarry, the place where his life had ended, the jagged rocks, the stagnant water. It was a desolate place, a place of despair. I walked the path he might have taken, imagining his last moments. It was a grim exercise, but it was necessary. I found a small, tarnished locket. It was hidden beneath some brush. It wasn't his. It was too delicate, too feminine. My heart pounded. Whose was it? Why was it there? I pocketed it, a cold dread creeping into my veins. This was the first tangible piece of evidence, something that didn't fit the accident narrative. Mom was becoming more withdrawn. She spent hours staring out the window. Her face was pale. Her eyes were red-rimmed. I tried to talk to her, to ask her if something was bothering her. She just shook her head. "I'm fine, dear," she'd say. Her voice was thin, fragile, but I knew she wasn't fine. No one was fine. Our family was a fractured mosaic, each piece sharp and dangerous. I felt a growing suspicion towards her. Her evasiveness was too deliberate. Her grief felt performative. Was she protecting someone, or was she involved? The thought was horrifying, but I couldn't shake it. I started watching her comings and goings, her hushed conversations. She met with a man, a stranger, in the dead of night. Their meeting was clandestine. They spoke in low tones. Their faces were grim. I couldn't make out their words, but the tension was palpable. My stomach churned. This was more than just a grieving widow. This was something far more sinister. I decided to follow her. The next time she met the man, I stayed hidden. My heart hammered against my ribs. They went to an old warehouse on the outskirts of town. It was dark, abandoned, a place for secrets. I crept closer, peeking through a broken window. I saw them, my mother and the man. He was holding a briefcase. He looked menacing. My mother looked terrified. She was handing him something. Money. A lot of money. My blood ran cold. This was not about an accident. This was about something else entirely. Something that had cost my father his life. The pieces were starting to fall into place. A horrifying, devastating picture. I had to know the truth, no matter how painful. I had to uncover what happened. For my father, for Lily, for myself. The locket felt heavy in my pocket, a silent witness, a promise of revelations to come. The night air was thick with unspoken fears. The shadows stretched long, hiding terrible secrets. I knew my life had irrevocably changed. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but I couldn't turn back now. The truth was a hungry beast, and it was demanding to be fed. I had to confront my mother, I had to break through her silence. I had to find out what she knew or what she had done. The weight of her secret was a burden, one I could no longer bear. The silence in our house was no longer just grief. It was a deliberate shroud, a carefully constructed lie, and I was determined to tear it down. Every fiber of my being screamed for justice, for closure, for my father's memory. The quarry was a place of death, but it had also become a place of awakening for me, a place where the truth began to stir. The locket was a key to a locked door, and I was ready to turn it, no matter what lay behind it. The whispers of the town seemed to fade, replaced by the roar of my own determination. I looked at the warehouse, a monument to deception. I knew I had to go inside. I had to witness the full extent of the betrayal. My mother's betrayal. The betrayal that had stolen my father. The air crackled with anticipation. The night was young, and my investigation had just begun. My resolve hardened. I wouldn't be silenced. I wouldn't be deterred. The truth would come out, one way or another. The scent of damp earth filled my nostrils. The distant hoot of an owl echoed, a lonely sound, much like my own heart. I took a deep breath and stepped towards the shadows, ready to face whatever lay within. The darkness offered no comfort, only the promise of revelation and the potential for utter devastation. Lily's innocent face flashed in my mind. I had to do this for her too, to rebuild a life on solid ground, not on a foundation of lies. The locket felt warm now, as if it held the heat of anticipation. The secrets it guarded were buried deep, but I was determined to unearth them. The quarry had been a beginning. This warehouse was the next step, a step into the heart of the deception. My father deserved better. He deserved the truth, and I was going to deliver it, even if it meant destroying my family. The silence of the night was a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. I had to be calm. I had to be strategic. Rage would only cloud my judgment. I needed clarity. I needed to see everything. The man's face was etched in my memory, his predatory gaze, my mother's fear. It was a scene of desperation, a scene of coercion. But what was the coercion about? What was so important that it led to murder? The question echoed in the emptiness. It demanded an answer. I replayed their conversation in my head, fragments of words. The deal. The money. He can't know. These were not the words of innocent people. These were words of complicity, of conspiracy. My father had been caught in the middle, or worse. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I pushed it away. Focus. I had to focus. The locket. It was still in my pocket. I pulled it out, under the dim moonlight. I tried to open it. It was stuck, resistant, like the truth itself. I fumbled with it. My fingers were clumsy. The metal was cold against my skin. Finally, with a small click, it sprang open. Inside, there were 2 tiny photographs. One was of my father, smiling, younger. The other photo, it wasn't my mother. It was a woman I didn't recognize. Her eyes were kind. Her smile was warm. Who was she? Why was her picture in a locket with my father's? And why was this locket at the quarry? This was a new layer of mystery, a new complication. My father had secrets, secrets he had kept from us, from my mother. The realization was a bitter pill. I had always seen him as an open book, a man of unwavering integrity. Now, I wasn't so sure. The woman in the photo, her face tugged at something deep within me, a flicker of recognition, but it was just beyond my grasp. I closed the locket. Its weight felt significant now, a tangible connection to a hidden past. I had to find out who she was and what her connection to my father was. The warehouse door creaked open. A sliver of light spilled out. I hesitated. My instincts screamed danger. But my need for answers was greater. I had to go in. I had to confront the source of the deception. The air inside was stale, musty. It smelled of decay and something metallic. Blood, perhaps. My heart rate accelerated. I moved cautiously. My eyes scanned the dim interior. Boxes were stacked high. Cobwebs hung like macabre decorations. The man was still there. He was talking on his phone. His voice was harsh. "The deal is done. No loose ends. Understand?" Loose ends. Was he referring to my father? The implication was chilling. My mother was nowhere to be seen. Had she left? Or was she still here, hidden in the shadows? I crept further into the warehouse. My footsteps were silent on the concrete floor. I needed to see more, to hear more. The man turned. His eyes scanned the room. I ducked behind a stack of crates. My breath hitched. He didn't see me. He continued his conversation. "The money is transferred. Everything is handled." Handled. That word again. It sent a fresh wave of fear through me. I risked a glance. He was walking towards a back room. The door was slightly ajar. He disappeared inside. This was my chance. I moved swiftly towards the door. I pushed it open just enough to peer inside. The room was small, bare, except for a single desk and a single chair. On the desk, there was a ledger, open, pages filled with names and figures. I recognized some of the names, people from town, respected members of the community, and their transactions were illicit, smuggling, blackmail. My father's name was there, but the entries associated with him were different. They were marked with red ink. Payable. Due. It looked like he was being extorted, forced to pay. But to whom and why? Then I saw it. A small, framed photograph on the desk. It was the same woman from the locket. Next to her, a younger man. His face was hard, cruel. He looked like he had inherited the woman's eyes, but none of her warmth. My blood ran cold. This was it. The missing piece. The man on the phone. He was the son, and he was connected to my father's secret. The woman in the photo, she was his mother, and she was my father's secret lover. The implications were staggering. A double life, a hidden affair, and a son who was now blackmailing him. This was why he was in trouble. This was why he was being extorted. This was why he was dead. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled back. My hand flew to my mouth. The ledger, the photograph, they were proof. Proof of my father's secret life, and proof of the crime that had ended it. The man emerged from the back room. He looked around again. His eyes narrowed. He had heard something. I froze. My heart pounded like a drum against my ribs. He started walking towards my hiding spot. I had to get out. I had to escape. But I couldn't leave without proof. I grabbed the ledger. and the photograph. And then I ran. The sound of his enraged shout echoed behind me. "Hey, stop!" I didn't look back. I ran as fast as I could, out of the warehouse, into the night. The cold air burned my lungs. My legs ached, but I didn't stop. I ran towards home, towards safety, towards the truth. The ledger was clutched in my hand. The photograph was tucked inside. These were my weapons, my evidence, my father's legacy. The night seemed to stretch endlessly. The trees loomed like dark specters. But I kept running, driven by a desperate need to protect Lily, to expose the truth, to avenge my father. The weight of the ledger was a heavy burden, but it was a burden I was willing to carry. The secrets it contained were devastating, but they were also liberating. They explained everything: the mystery of his death, my mother's strange behavior, the town's hushed whispers. It all made a terrible kind of sense now. My father had been trapped, caught between two worlds, and he had paid the ultimate price. I reached our street. The porch light was on, a beacon of hope. I burst through the front door. My mother was in the living room. She looked up, startled. Her eyes widened in fear. She saw the ledger. She saw the photograph. Her face drained of color. The carefully constructed facade crumbled. Her secret was out. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by my ragged breaths. I held up the ledger. "Who is she?" I demanded. My voice trembled, but my resolve was unwavering. "Who is the woman in this picture?" My mother stared at the photograph, her eyes filled with tears. She sank into a chair, her body shaking. It's Elena," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible. "Your father's first love." First love. The words hung in the air. A confession, a betrayal. "He never stopped loving her," my mother continued. "Even after we were married, he always carried a piece of her with him." My world tilted on its axis. My father, my devoted father, had loved another woman all those years, while he was married to my mother, while he was raising us. The betrayal was deep. It cut through me like a knife. "And the man?" I asked. My voice was hoarse. "Who is the man with her?" My mother hesitated. Her gaze flickered to the ledger. "That's their son," she said. Dmitri. Dmitri. The name resonated with a chilling familiarity. The man on the phone, the man in the warehouse. He was my father's son, my half-brother, and he was a blackmailer. "He found out about them," my mother explained. Her voice cracked. "He started demanding money, threatening to expose them. Your father paid him. He paid him for years to protect us, to protect our family. Protect us by living a lie, by being extorted, by ultimately being murdered." The narrative twisted and turned, each revelation more devastating than the last. "He couldn't take it anymore," she choked out. "Dmitri was getting bolder. He was demanding more. Your father, he was desperate. He went to meet Dmitri at the quarry, to try and reason with him. But Dmitri, he was ruthless." My mother began to sob, her body racked with grief. "He pushed your father. He killed him. And then he made it look like an accident." The truth was finally laid bare. A brutal, ugly truth. My father hadn't died in an accident. He had been murdered by his own son, my half-brother. My mother had known. She had known all along, and she had kept it from me, from Lily. The silence in the house was no longer just a shroud. It was a conspiracy, a web of lies spun to protect a secret that had cost my father his life. I looked at my mother. Her face was a mask of sorrow. Her eyes pleaded for understanding, but I couldn't give it, not yet. The betrayal was too fresh, the pain too raw. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. My voice was cold. "Why did you let me believe it was an accident?" "I was scared," she whispered, terrified. "Dmitri threatened me too. He said he would hurt Lily. He said he would destroy us. I didn't know what else to do." Her fear was palpable, but it didn't excuse her silence. It didn't erase the years of deception. I looked at Lily. She was standing in the doorway, her eyes wide. She had heard everything. Her innocence was shattered. The weight of our family's secrets was now hers too. I walked over to her. I knelt down, and I pulled her into my arms. "It's okay, Lily," I said. My voice was softer now. "It's going to be okay." But I knew it wouldn't be. Our family was irrevocably broken. The scars of betrayal ran deep, but we would heal. We would find a way forward, together. I looked at the ledger, a testament to my father's pain and to Dimitri's cruelty. I knew what I had to do. I had to go to the police. I had to bring Dmitri to justice. My father deserved that much. He deserved peace, and we deserved the truth. My mother watched me, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hope. She knew this was the end of their lies, the end of their silence, the beginning of something new, something honest, something painful, but something necessary. I would not let my father's death be in vain. I would not let Dmitri get away with it. The locket lay on the table, a symbol of a love lost and a life destroyed. But it was also a symbol of resilience, of the truth that would always find a way to surface. We were a family fractured, but we were still a family, and we would face this together. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but we would walk it with courage and with the unwavering hope for justice. My father's memory would guide us. His love would sustain us. And the truth, however painful, would ultimately set us free. The scent of burnt sugar was gone, replaced by the crisp air of a new dawn. A dawn filled with the promise of healing and the unwavering certainty that even in the darkest of times, love and truth would prevail. My mother reached out. Her hand trembled as she touched my arm. "We'll get through this," she whispered. Her voice was stronger now, filled with a newfound resolve. I met her gaze, and for the first time in a long time, I saw a flicker of the woman I remembered. A woman who had loved my father fiercely, a woman who had been broken, but not defeated. The ledger was a heavy burden, but it was also a symbol of our strength, our resilience, our commitment to finding justice. Lily leaned against me, her small hand finding mine. Her grip was firm, a silent promise of solidarity. We were a united front, ready to face the world, ready to rebuild our lives on a foundation of truth and forgiveness. The path to healing would be long, but we would walk it together, hand in hand, with the memory of my father guiding our steps, and the unwavering hope for a brighter future. The house was no longer filled with ghosts. It was filled with the quiet strength of survivors, ready to face whatever came next, with courage and with love. The dawn had broken, and with it, a new beginning, a beginning forged in pain, but illuminated by the unwavering light of truth. My father's story would not end in tragedy. It would end in justice and in the enduring power of family, even when that family was broken and scarred. We would find a way to mend, to heal, to love again. The locket lay on the table, no longer a symbol of betrayal, but a reminder of the complexities of life, of the secrets we keep, and the love that endures. My father's love, my mother's love, and the love that would bind us. Lily, my mother, and me, forever. The shadows of the past were receding, replaced by the warm glow of a new day. A day where honesty would prevail, and where our family, though altered, would find peace. The journey had been arduous, but the destination was clear: justice, healing, and a future built on truth. My father deserved nothing less, and neither did we. The weight of the ledger felt lighter now, a burden shared, a testament to our collective strength. The photograph of Elena and Dmitri served as a stark reminder, but also as a catalyst for change, for redemption. The tears had finally stopped, replaced by a quiet determination, a shared understanding. We were survivors, and we would thrive. The world outside was waking up, unaware of the seismic shift that had occurred within our walls. But we knew the truth, and we were ready to face it, together. The echoes of the past would linger, but they would not define us. Our future would be our own, built on honesty and on love. My father's legacy would be one of courage and of sacrifice, and we would honor it by living our lives with integrity and with unwavering love for one another. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a warm glow on our faces, a symbol of hope and of renewal. We were ready for whatever came next, ready to face the world as a stronger, more resilient family, united by truth and bound by love. The story was far from over, but this chapter had reached its conclusion, a conclusion of pain, but also of immense hope and the unwavering promise of a brighter tomorrow. My father would be avenged, and our family would heal. This was our beginning, our true beginning, forged in fire and tempered by truth. We would carry his memory and his love always. The scent of hope filled the air, a sweet, delicate fragrance, a promise of a future where love conquers all and where truth sets us free. My mother squeezed my hand, a silent acknowledgement, a shared resolve. Lily nestled closer, her breathing steady. She was safe and loved. That was all that mattered now. The ledger was a heavy reminder, but it was also a symbol of our strength. Our journey towards justice had begun, and we would walk it together with unwavering courage and with hearts full of love. My father's spirit would guide us, his memory would sustain us, and his love would be our eternal beacon. The world outside was indifferent, but within these walls, a new family was being born, a family united by truth and bound by an unbreakable love. The dawn had truly broken, and with it, our new beginning. A beginning filled with the promise of healing and the unwavering certainty that love, in its truest form, would always prevail. The locket felt cold against my skin. It was a tangible link to a past I was only beginning to understand. The weight of my father's secrets, now shared, settled upon me. My mother's hand still rested on my arm, a fragile anchor. Lily, our small, brave Lily, was a silent presence beside me, her small fingers laced with mine. The raw grief that had consumed us moments before was slowly giving way to a steely resolve. We were no longer victims of circumstance. We were survivors. "We need to go to the police," I stated, my voice firm, cutting through the lingering silence. The words hung in the air, heavy with consequence. My mother flinched slightly, her eyes widening with a familiar fear. But this time, it was tempered with something else. A flicker of acceptance. I know," she whispered, her voice trembling but clear. "We can't keep this hidden any longer. Not after everything." She looked at Lily, her gaze filled with a fierce protectiveness. "Lily deserves to grow up in a world free of these lies." Lily squeezed my hand tighter. She didn't fully grasp the enormity of the situation, but she understood the shift. The air in the house had changed. The oppressive weight of unspoken truths had lifted, replaced by the bracing chill of reality. But with that reality came a clarity, a purpose. I opened the ledger again. The neat columns of names and figures, once a source of confusion, now told a story of blackmail and fear. Dimitri's name was a recurring blight. Each entry was a testament to my father's desperate attempts to shield us from his son's rapacious greed. The final entries were particularly disturbing, detailing increasingly large sums of money demanded. My father had been cornered. "He was trapped," I murmured, tracing the numbers with my finger. Dimitri bled him dry. He had no other options. The quarry. The thought of my father standing on that precipice, facing his own brother, sent a fresh wave of anguish through me. My mother nodded, tears welling in her eyes again. "Your father was too good, too kind. He believed he could reason with him. He always believed in the good in people, even when it wasn't there." Her voice cracked on the last word. "Dimitri never had any good in him," I said, my voice hardening. "He was a monster, and he's still out there." The realization was chilling. Dimitri was a free man, living his life, while my father lay buried, his death masked as a tragic accident. "We have to take this to Detective Miller," I said, closing the ledger with a decisive snap. "He's been investigating Dad's death. He'll understand." I looked at my mother, searching her face for any lingering hesitation. There was none, only a quiet strength. "I'll go with you," she said, her voice steady. "I'll tell him everything. I'll corroborate your story." She reached out and squeezed my hand. "We'll do this together." Lily, sensing the urgency, looked from me to her mother. "Are we going somewhere?" she asked, her voice a soft whisper. "Yes, sweetheart," I replied, forcing a smile. "We're going to get justice for Daddy." I saw a flicker of understanding in her eyes. She knew this was more than just a trip. This was important. We gathered our coats. The familiar weight of the locket around my neck was a constant reminder of what we were fighting for. As we walked out the front door, the sunlight felt different. It wasn't just a new day. It was the beginning of our new life. A life built on honesty, even if that honesty was born from the ashes of our family's darkest secret. The drive to the police station was a blur. My mother sat beside me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Lily, in the back seat, was unusually quiet, her gaze fixed on the passing scenery. The ledger sat on the seat between us, a silent, damning witness. Every mile we covered felt like a step away from the shadows that had haunted our home for so long. Detective Miller's office was stark and functional. The air smelled of stale coffee and paper. He was a man who looked like he'd seen it all, his eyes sharp and observant. He listened intently as my mother began to speak, her voice gaining strength with each word. She recounted the years of fear, the constant demands, the unbearable pressure my father had endured. She described the day he went to the quarry, her voice breaking as she told him how Dimitri had killed him. I watched Detective Miller's face. His expression remained impassive for the most part, but I saw the flicker of disbelief, then dawning realization in his eyes. He asked clarifying questions, his tone professional, yet with an underlying sense of urgency. He took notes diligently, his pen scratching across the page. When my mother finished, the silence in the room was profound. She looked drained, but a sense of relief seemed to wash over her. She had finally spoken the truth aloud to someone who could act upon it. "This is a lot," Detective Miller said, leaning back in his chair. "We'll need to verify this, but if what you're saying is true..." He looked at me, his gaze steady. "Your father's death will be reclassified, and we will pursue Dimitri." He then turned his attention to me. "You mentioned a ledger. May I see it?" I handed him the worn book. He opened it carefully, his brow furrowed as he scanned the pages. "This is extensive. It paints a very clear picture of coercion." He looked up, his eyes meeting mine. "This will be crucial evidence." "There are other things," I said, my voice firm. "Photographs, letters. My father kept everything. He was meticulous. I knew where he kept them, hidden in a false bottom in his study." Detective Miller nodded. "We'll need to collect those as well. We'll need to conduct a thorough search." He stood up, his demeanor shifting from passive listener to active investigator. "We'll need you to make formal statements, and we'll need to bring Dimitri in for questioning. This won't be a quick process." "We understand," my mother said, her voice soft but resolute. "We'll cooperate fully." As we left the police station, the sun felt warmer, the air lighter. We hadn't brought Dimitri to justice yet. That was a battle yet to be fought. But we had taken the first, crucial step. We had broken the silence. We had chosen truth over fear. Driving home, I glanced at Lily. She was asleep in the back seat, her head resting against the window, her small face peaceful. She was protected now. The shadows of Dimitri's influence were starting to recede from her life. My mother reached over and placed her hand on my knee. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "for pushing this, for not letting it go." "He deserved it, Mom," I replied, my voice choked with a mixture of sadness and pride. Dad deserved justice, and we deserved the truth. The house, when we returned, felt different. The oppressive silence was gone, replaced by an almost tangible sense of hope. The ledger sat on the kitchen counter, no longer a hidden burden, but a symbol of our newfound strength. The locket around my neck felt less like a weight and more like a guiding light. The investigation would be long and arduous. There would be difficult conversations, painful memories to revisit. Dmitri would fight back. He was not someone who gave up easily, but we were no longer alone in our fight. We had the police, and more importantly, we had each other. That evening, as I tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at me with her innocent eyes. "Are we going to be okay?" she asked, her voice small. I knelt beside her, my heart aching with love and a fierce protectiveness. "Yes, sweetie," I said, my voice gentle. "We are going to be more than okay. We are going to be strong. We're going to be happy. And we're going to be together. Always." She smiled, a small, hopeful smile that pierced through the lingering darkness. As I kissed her forehead and turned off the light, I knew that the journey ahead would be challenging. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a profound sense of peace. The truth, however painful, had set us free, and the fight for justice had truly begun. The locket glinted faintly in the dim light filtering through the window. It was no longer just a memento of loss. It was a promise of a future where my father's memory would not be tarnished by lies, but honored by truth, courage, and the unwavering strength of a family reunited. The quiet hum of the house was no longer a whisper of secrets, but a steady pulse of resilience. We were ready, we were prepared, and we would face Dmitri and whatever else the future held, together. The next morning arrived with a crisp autumn chill. Sunlight, no longer a tentative visitor, streamed through the windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. The house felt lighter, the shadows receding like an ebbing tide. Lily, usually a whirlwind of energy, was unusually subdued, tracing patterns on the condensation of her juice glass. The ledger, a stark reminder of the preceding day, remained on the counter, a silent sentinel. It was a tangible artifact of our painful revelation. My mother, her movements more purposeful than they had been in years, made breakfast. The clatter of pans and the aroma of frying bacon filled the kitchen, a comforting soundscape that had been absent for too long. She hummed a tuneless melody, a small smile playing on her lips. It was a fragile smile, yet it held a nascent strength. "Detective Miller called," she announced, her voice carrying a newfound steadiness. "He said they've secured the study. We can go and collect those documents this afternoon." A knot of anticipation tightened in my stomach. The study, my father's sanctuary. I hadn't been in there since the funeral, the grief too overwhelming. Now, it held not just memories, but evidence. Evidence that would finally bring Dmitri to account. "I'll get the car ready," I said, standing up. "We should go as soon as possible." Lily looked up, her eyes wide. "Are we going to Daddy's room?" My heart ached. "Yes, honey," I replied softly. "We're going to find some important things for Daddy." Her innocent understanding of the situation was both heartbreaking and motivating. The drive to the house was shorter than I remembered, the familiar route now imbued with a sense of grim purpose. Pulling into the driveway, the house loomed, its facade unchanged, yet its interior now held a terrifying secret. The silence that greeted us as we opened the front door was heavy, expectant. It was the silence of a place holding its breath. Detective Miller was waiting for us on the porch. He offered a brief, professional nod.
"Everything is as you left it," he said. "We've secured the perimeter. No one has entered the study." His presence was a reassuring anchor in the sea of our apprehension. The study was a testament to my father's meticulous nature. Books lined the walls, their spines a colorful mosaic. His desk was neat, a single fountain pen resting beside a stack of neatly organized papers. The air was thick with the scent of aged paper and leather. It felt like stepping back in time to a moment before everything shattered. "The false bottom is in the bottom drawer of the desk," I explained, my voice barely a whisper. I ran my hand over the smooth wood, the grain familiar beneath my fingertips. It was a detail my father had shared with me years ago, a playful secret that now held immense significance. Detective Miller knelt, his movements precise. He found the hidden latch with practiced ease. With a soft click, a section of the drawer bottom slid open, revealing a compartment filled with envelopes and a smaller, leather-bound journal. My father's careful handwriting adorned the labels. "This is it," I breathed, my voice catching. I reached in and carefully lifted out the journal. It was smaller than the ledger, its pages filled with my father's elegant script. This was his personal account, his private thoughts. "He wrote everything down," my mother murmured, her hand flying to her mouth. Tears welled in her eyes. "Even his fears. He didn't want to forget." Detective Miller began to sift through the envelopes. "These are correspondence, threats, demands, and these," he held up a few older photographs, "show your father and Dmitri together, early on, before things changed." The images were a stark contrast to the horror that had unfolded. Two brothers, smiling, unaware of the darkness that would consume their future. I opened my father's journal. The first entry was dated years ago. It spoke of Dmitri's growing obsession with my father's success, his envy, his insidious manipulation. The entries chronicled a slow, calculated descent into villainy. My father's attempts to reason with him, his desperate pleas, his growing despair. It was a narrative of a good man being systematically destroyed by a ruthless one. "He tried so hard to save him," my mother whispered, her voice thick with sorrow. "He saw the good in Dmitri, even when it wasn't there. He kept hoping he would change." The journal entries grew more frantic, more desperate, as Dmitri's demands escalated. My father wrote of sleepless nights, of the gnawing fear for our safety, of the constant pressure to comply. The final entries were chillingly prescient, hinting at the danger he was in, his growing sense of dread. He had known, on some level, that his life was at risk. "He suspected," I said, my voice hoarse. "He suspected Dmitri would go this far." I looked at Detective Miller. "The quarry. He went there to meet him one last time, to try and reason with him, to give him the last of the money." Detective Miller nodded, his gaze intense. "And Dmitri seized the opportunity." He carefully placed the journal and the envelopes into a protective evidence bag. "This is invaluable. It corroborates everything your mother has told us, and it provides a motive, a history of escalating abuse." Lily, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, walked over to me. She reached out and touched the locket around my neck. "Daddy's locket," she said softly. I knelt and hugged her tightly. "Yes, sweetheart, Daddy's locket, and we're going to make sure everyone knows what happened to him." The weight of the locket felt less like grief and more like a symbol of our shared resolve. As we left the house, the sun seemed to shine a little brighter. The house, once a monument to our hidden pain, now felt like a place where the truth had finally been unearthed. The evidence we had gathered was a powerful weapon, a testament to my father's quiet courage. The drive back to the police station was filled with a somber determination. Detective Miller had arranged for a secure room where we could give our formal statements. The process was exhaustive, each question probing deeper into the recesses of our fear and grief. My mother spoke with unwavering clarity, her voice steady as she recounted the years of torment. I detailed the discovery of the ledger and the hidden compartment in the study. Lily, surprisingly, remained calm, occasionally offering simple, honest answers when directly addressed. "We will issue a warrant for Dimitri's arrest," Detective Miller stated, his tone firm. "With this evidence, we have a strong case. It won't be easy. He's resourceful, and he'll have legal representation, but we will bring him to justice." The promise hung in the air, a beacon of hope in the darkness that had shrouded our lives. We had done all we could. The rest was in the hands of the law. Returning home, the house felt different again. It was no longer just a place of refuge, but a symbol of our resilience. The ledger and the journal were now in the hands of justice, their secrets exposed. Lily, exhausted by the emotional roller coaster of the day, fell asleep on the sofa, a peaceful expression on her face. My mother and I sat in the living room, the silence between us not one of unease, but of quiet understanding. The weight of the secret had been lifted, replaced by the arduous but necessary path of healing and accountability. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Now," my mother replied, her gaze fixed on Lily. "We wait, and we stay strong. For your father, for Lily, and for ourselves." She reached out and took my hand, her grip firm. "We have each other. That's what truly matters." The days that followed were a strange blend of anticipation and normalcy. We tried to reestablish routines, to find a semblance of peace amidst the ongoing investigation. The locket remained a constant presence, a reminder of our purpose. Each time I touched it, I felt a surge of resolve, a renewed commitment to seeing this through. Then, one evening, the phone rang. Detective Miller's voice, though professional, held a note of triumph. "We've apprehended Dimitri," he announced. "He was attempting to flee the country. The evidence you provided was overwhelming. He had no choice but to surrender." A wave of relief washed over me, so potent it made me weak. It was over. The monster had been captured. My father's memory would finally be cleared. The trial was a grueling ordeal. We relived the pain, the fear, the injustice in front of a courtroom filled with strangers. But we did it. My mother's testimony was powerful and unwavering. My own account, supported by the ledger and the journal, left no room for doubt. Dimitri, stripped of his arrogance and bravado, sat a broken man, his reign of terror finally at an end. When the verdict was read, guilty on all counts, a collective breath was held, then released in a wave of quiet exhalation. Justice, hard-won and long overdue, had been served. The aftermath was a slow, gradual process of rebuilding. The scars remained, but they no longer defined us. We learned to live with the memories, to honor my father's legacy by embracing honesty, courage, and love. Lily grew, her innocence preserved, her understanding of the past tempered by the present peace. One sunny afternoon, months later, we visited my father's grave. Lily placed a bouquet of wildflowers at the headstone. I stood beside my mother, the locket warm against my skin. The weight it carried was no longer one of sorrow, but of remembrance and gratitude. "He would be so proud of you," my mother whispered, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "We did it, Dad," I said, my voice filled with a quiet triumph. We finally brought the truth to light. The wind rustled through the leaves, carrying with it a sense of peace. The shadows had receded, leaving behind only the enduring light of a family that had faced its darkest secret and emerged stronger, united by love and the unwavering pursuit of justice.
The locket glinted, a silent testament to a promise fulfilled. Years passed. The locket remained a cherished heirloom, a tangible link to the past. Its gold had dulled slightly, a testament to its constant presence. My mother found a measure of peace, her laughter returning, though tinged with a gentle melancholy. Lily blossomed into a young woman, her spirit bright and resilient, her memories of her father a warm comfort rather than a source of fear. I, too, had found my footing, building a life that honored my father's principles of integrity and compassion. The legal proceedings had concluded, but the echoes of Dimitri's actions lingered, a somber reminder of the darkness that had once threatened to consume us. We had navigated the storm, emerging battered but unbroken. The house, once a silent witness to our suffering, now hummed with a quiet contentment. The study, though still holding the scent of old paper, no longer felt like a tomb, but a sanctuary. It was a place where my father's wisdom, preserved in his books, continued to guide us. One crisp autumn afternoon, while sorting through some old boxes in the attic, I stumbled upon a small, unmarked wooden chest. It was tucked away in a far corner, hidden beneath a moth-eaten tapestry. Curiosity piqued, I brought it downstairs. The wood was dark and smooth, intricately carved with patterns I didn't immediately recognize. There was no lock, only a simple, almost invisible seam. My mother, sensing my intrigue, joined me. She ran a finger over the carvings. "I've never seen this before," she murmured. "Your father kept so many things hidden, didn't he?" With a gentle pull, the lid of the chest lifted. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, were a collection of old photographs, letters tied with ribbon, and a small, tarnished silver locket, identical to the one I wore, save for its material. The photographs depicted my father and mother in their youth, their faces radiant with hope and love. The letters were a treasure trove of their early correspondence, filled with tender declarations and shared dreams. But it was the locket that drew my attention. I picked it up. It was cool against my skin. It opened with a soft click, revealing two miniature portraits. One was my father, his gaze earnest. The other was a woman I didn't recognize, her features delicate, her eyes filled with a profound sadness. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My mother peered at the portrait, her brow furrowed. "I don't know," she admitted. "I've never seen her before."
She's beautiful, though. We spent the rest of the afternoon poring over the contents of the chest. The letters spoke of a deep affection, a love that seemed to predate my father's relationship with my mother. Yet there was no mention of this woman by name. The photographs were dated from the same era as the letters, but they offered no further clues. The locket, this other locket, felt like a missing piece of my father's past, a story untold. The discovery left me with a new sense of wonder and a lingering question. My father had been a man of immense depth and complexity, but this woman, this silent presence in his history, remained an enigma. The chest held more than just mementos. It held a mystery, a whisper from a time before I existed. The following week, I decided to visit the local historical society. Perhaps they could help identify the woman in the locket. The society was housed in an old, charming building, filled with the hushed reverence of preserved history. Mrs. Gable, the archivist, was a kind woman with a keen eye for detail. I showed her the locket and the photographs. She examined them carefully, her fingers tracing the edges of the portraits. "This is fascinating," she said, her voice thoughtful. "The style of the dress, the photography itself, it points to the late 1940s, early 1950s. She then turned her attention to the woman's face. "There's something familiar about her, a certain grace." She led me to a section of the archives dedicated to prominent families of the region. We spent hours sifting through old yearbooks and society pages. Then Mrs. Gable gasped softly. She pointed to a faded photograph in an old newspaper clipping. It was the woman from the Locket, her name printed beneath, Eleanor Vance. Eleanor Vance, Mrs. Gable read aloud. She was a prominent socialite, a philanthropist. Tragically, she died young, a supposed accident. Her voice lowered. There were rumors at the time, whispers about her and a certain ambitious young man, someone who was trying to make a name for himself in business. The pieces began to fall into place, a dark and unsettling mosaic. My father had been ambitious. He had also been a man of deep loyalty, and it was possible that this woman, Eleanor Vance, had played a significant role in his early life, a role he had never shared. The locket, a symbol of love, now hinted at a hidden chapter, a secret sorrow. Did they ever find out who was responsible for her death? I asked, my voice tight. Mrs. Gable shook her head. No, the case went cold. It was ruled an accident, but the rumors persisted. Some believed she was silenced. It was a scandal that was quickly buried. A chill ran down my spine. The idea of my father being connected to such a tragedy, even indirectly, was disquieting. Had he been in love with Eleanor Vance? Had her death impacted him in ways I could not comprehend? The locket, once a symbol of my father's enduring love for my mother, now felt like a key to a hidden chamber of his past, a past that might hold its own darkness. Returning home, I felt a profound disquiet. The locket from the chest, identical to mine, felt heavier now. I opened it again, looking at Eleanor's portrait. Her sad eyes seemed to hold a silent plea, a story begging to be told. The narrative of my father's life, which I believed I knew so intimately, had just gained a new, unsettling dimension. The foundation of our family's history, which I thought was solid and secure, now felt subtly shifted, a shadow cast upon its unwavering light. The pursuit of truth, it seemed, was a never-ending journey, and some truths, once unearthed, brought with them their own disquieting weight. The weight of this new knowledge settled upon me like a shroud. My father, the man I had revered, the man whose memory I had fought so hard to clear, had a secret life, a secret that involved a beautiful woman, a tragic death, and whispers of scandal. It was a stark contrast to the man I knew, the man who instilled in me the importance of honesty and integrity. This Eleanor Vance was a ghost from his past, a ghost that had now materialized in my present. I found myself replaying conversations, searching for any subtle hint, any misplaced word that might have alluded to her. There was nothing. My father had been a master of discretion, it seemed, capable of compartmentalizing his life with an almost impenetrable skill. My mother, too, seemed genuinely unaware. Her lack of recognition was a testament to his ability to keep this part of himself hidden. The locket from the chest became a constant companion. I carried it with me, its cool metal a constant reminder of the questions swirling in my mind. I looked at Eleanor's portrait, trying to decipher the emotions etched on her delicate features. Was that sadness born of unrequited love, or something far more complicated? The rumors of her being silenced gnawed at me. Silenced by whom? And why? The ambition that Mrs. Gable mentioned, the ambition of a young man trying to make a name for himself. It resonated with my father's early drive. He had been fiercely determined, especially in his youth. Had he been involved with Eleanor Vance in a way that led to her demise? The thought was deeply disturbing. My father had always been a man of principle. Could he have been complicit in something so terrible? Or was he a victim of circumstance, caught in a web of deceit spun by others?
I returned to the study, the room that had once represented closure and peace. Now, it felt like a repository of unspoken truths. I ran my hand over the spines of my father's books, their familiar comfort now tinged with an undercurrent of unease. He had loved knowledge, and he had loved my mother. But this Eleanor Vance, she was a discordant note in the symphony of his life. I decided to revisit the Historical Society. Mrs. Gable was a wealth of information, and I hoped she might have access to more obscure records, perhaps private letters or diaries that weren't part of the public archives. She welcomed me back with her usual warmth, her curiosity piqued by my return. I explained my growing unease, the feeling that Eleanor Vance's story was intertwined with my father's in a way that was still unclear. Mrs. Gable, ever diligent, agreed to do some more digging. She spoke of the social circles Eleanor Vance moved in, the prominent families of the era. She suggested that perhaps Eleanor had been involved with someone other than my father, and that my father might have been a confidant or even a protector. This offered a glimmer of hope, a possibility that my father's connection to Eleanor was one of honorable friendship, not of tragic romance, or worse. Days turned into a week. I immersed myself in my work, trying to push these unsettling thoughts to the periphery. But they always returned, like relentless tides. Lily noticed my distraction. Her bright eyes, so full of life, held a question. She asked if I was all right, if something was bothering me. I found myself unable to share this burden with her, not yet. She had been through enough. Then, a call from Mrs. Gable. Her voice was hushed with excitement. She had found something. It was a collection of personal papers donated by a distant relative of the Vance family that had only recently been cataloged. Among them were letters, not to Eleanor, but from Eleanor. And one of them was addressed to a young man named Thomas, my father's name. The letter was dated just weeks before Eleanor's death. It was filled with a desperate urgency. Eleanor spoke of a dangerous discovery, something she had stumbled upon concerning the business dealings of a powerful man. She named him, a name I vaguely recognized from old society gossip columns. A man who had been a contemporary of my father's, known for his ruthlessness. She expressed fear for her life, and she begged for help. She mentioned confiding in someone she trusted implicitly, someone who had a keen mind and a strong moral compass. She believed he could help her expose this man. My heart pounded in my chest. Could my father have been this confidant? Had he been involved in trying to help Eleanor expose this corruption? The letter was a turning point. It shifted the narrative from one of potential personal tragedy to one of attempted heroism, albeit a failed one. Mrs. Gable also found a brief mention in a diary belonging to a close friend of Eleanor's. The entry spoke of Eleanor's growing concern over a corrupt businessman and her intention to meet with a young, ambitious man who had promised to assist her. The name of this businessman was indeed the same one Eleanor had mentioned in her letter. The diary entry ended abruptly, with no further details about the meeting. The pieces were clicking into place, forming a picture that was both heartbreaking and inspiring. My father, it seemed, had been trying to protect Eleanor, to help her expose a dangerous truth. But they had failed, and Eleanor had paid the ultimate price. The rumors of her death being an accident, or worse, of her being silenced, now seemed to point directly at this corrupt businessman. But what about my father? Had he been threatened? Had he been forced into silence? His decision to keep this part of his life hidden, to never speak of Eleanor or her plight, suddenly made a grim kind of sense. He had likely been terrified, perhaps for his own life, or for the safety of my mother. He had chosen to protect them by burying the truth, by letting the memory of Eleanor fade into a personal sorrow. The locket, the silver locket from the chest, now held a different meaning. It was not just a symbol of lost love, but a testament to a shared secret, a shared struggle against injustice. My father had carried this burden for decades, alone.
He had chosen to focus on building a life of integrity, a life that would honor the principles he believed in, even if he couldn't publicly champion them in this instance. I thanked Mrs. Gable profusely, my mind racing with a new set of questions. Who was this corrupt businessman? And had my father ever confronted him? Or had he simply retreated into a life of quiet integrity? The revelation was profound. It didn't diminish my father's memory. It deepened it. It showed a different facet of his character, one of courage, of loyalty, of a quiet determination to do what was right, even when the risks were immense. As I walked out of the historical society, the autumn air felt sharper, the sunlight more brilliant. The shadows that had once clouded my father's past were beginning to recede, replaced by a more complex, but ultimately more heroic, understanding. The locket felt warm against my skin, no longer a symbol of a hidden sadness, but of a shared fight for truth. A fight that my father had waged in his own way, and a fight that I now felt compelled to understand more fully. The journey of uncovering my father's past was far from over. It had merely taken an unexpected and profound turn.